Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Committee on Criminal Justice. At this time, we ask you could please place phones on vibrate or silent mode. Thank you, Chair. We are ready to begin.
Good morning. I am Councilmember Sandy Nurse, Chair of the Council's Committee on Criminal Justice. I'd like to welcome you to today's vote to override the Mayor's veto of Introduction 549A. I want to recognize my colleagues who are here. I'm going to do a fast roll call. Councilmember Aviles, Caban, Gutierrez, De La Rosa, Abreu, Public Advocate Jumaane Williams, Ressler, Ayala, Stevens, Hanif, Osei, Joseph, Narcisse, Sanchez, Marte, Hudson, Williams, Rivera. I think I got everyone. The first month into my first term, I did an unannounced visit to Rikers with other colleagues. I was able to visit many facilities and units, including newly built punitive segregation isolation units. I met people who said they were in the box being a shower stall, and many who were lacking medical care. Throughout my time in the council, I have stood with the families who've had loved ones taken from them due to their time in solitary confinement, and I've listened to the stories of people who've suffered in solitary confinement, the stories that will make you sick to your stomach. That is why I'm proud that my first hearing as chair of this important committee will be a vote to reaffirm the council's commitment to ban solitary confinement and fundamentally change the way our jails operate. Despite years of some well-intentioned efforts at reform and the appointment of a federal monitor, the dangerous and deadly conditions at our city jails still exist, and the spaces where suffering has been the most acute have been those where people are isolated, whether it's solitary confinement, punitive segregation, restrictive housing, lock-in, or otherwise. The administration contends there is no solitary confinement in city jails since 2019, but that statement is inconsistent with what I have witnessed and many others have reported. Reports reveal DOC has used cages attached to holding cells and considered that to be out of cell time, that people are being locked in decontamination showers, and that the department's current iteration of restrictive housing allows for people who choose not to participate in out-of-cell programming to be chained to desks, and where the federal monitor reported the chaos has resulted in an environment not substantially different than punitive segregation. It doesn't matter what they call it. Prolonged isolation, as practiced in New York City jails, is simply solitary by another name. The administration has argued that discretion to use isolation as punishment is necessary to deter violent behavior. However, isolation, even for short durations, can have devastating consequences, and the record of the harm caused by solitary confinement is voluminous. It causes self-mutilation, anxiety, depression, and psychosis. Even after a person is released, spending time in solitary is correlated with an increased risk of suicide, a fact sadly illustrated by the death of Kalief Browder in 2015. It is past time we take a different approach. Introduction 549A ends the practice of excessive isolation as punishment. The Council has considered all of the information shared by various experts and stakeholders, including people who have lived through solitary, people who have had or lost family members to solitary, such as Layleen Polanco, Kalief Browder, Brandon Rodriguez, and Eric Tavira, other national experts on solitary confinement and violence prevention, including Dr. James Gilligan, Dr. Brandy Lee, Dr. Carrie Kuppers, defender organizations, people working in the jails, the DOC commissioner, the federal monitor, our constituents, and other community members. Intro 549A limits the department's ability to use restraints indiscriminately, rids facilities of locked decontamination showers, and requires a rationale and fixed duration for emergency lock-ins. Despite the misleading rhetoric, the bill does not prevent the department from separating people from the general population who engage in violent behavior. It does not bar the use of restraints in all cases, and it still allows the department to make distinctions in how people are supervised in custody. Most importantly, the bill aligns city policy with best practices in youth and mental health institutions and successful interventions in adult jails and prisons. This bill provides a more effective response to interpersonal violence than current practices, allows for the separation of individuals from the general population for emergency de-escalation and then in restrictive housing, with the ability to have different supervision and security measures than the general population, including in smaller group settings. Allows for and envisions the operation of violence prevention interventions that have proven to reduce violence, like the RSVP program, the Merle Cooper program, and the CAPS and PACE programs as originally operated. I want to thank Public Advocate Jumaane Williams for sponsoring this bill, along with my predecessor, who is the former chair of this committee, Councilmember Carlina Rivera, all the co-sponsors, and including our speaker. I also want to acknowledge all the advocates who worked relentlessly over the years to eliminate solitary confinement. I've recognized Dr. V, Scott, Sarita, Darren, Peter, and many more who have consistently showed up for this fight. I want to especially thank those who not only advocated for its elimination, but who've suffered in solitary confinement themselves, and those who've had friends and loved ones suffer and die from this cruel and inhumane practice. I urge all my colleagues to vote yes to override the mayor's veto of this landmark legislation. And I offer the floor to our public advocate, Jumaane Williams, to make some remarks.
Thank you so much. Peace and blessings, love and light to everyone. I want to thank everyone who's here, including Chair Nurse. Congratulations. Thank you for your support. Speaker Adams, our former chair, Councilman Rivera, all the co-sponsors. Thank you to all of the families who turned their pain into purpose. Families like Brandon Rodriguez, Lillian Polanco, Khalif Browder, and so many families that we did not know their names and are still suffering the repercussions. Thank you to the advocates and my staff, among them Nick Smith, Elizabeth Acevedo, Jeffrey Sevier, Gwen Safran, Solomon Acevedo, Elizabeth Guzman, I meant to say, and especially Veronica Avies and especially Rosie Mendez, who's here, who helped carry this on their back. I just want to say, I think sometimes folks don't realize this stuff really weighs heavily on me. I do take a lot of time to make sure I'm listening to what everyone is saying. And what this bill fundamentally does is try to end any vestiges of solitary confinement that still exists. And it tries to change the use of isolation to change behavior. Not only has it not been changing behavior, it is known to cause long-lasting effects on people. That's what this bill does. It's not going to fix everything that's going on with Rikers, but it is going to address that one issue, hopefully. So far, we've had 2 people die in Rikers, and I want to make sure we're lifting up the detainees. I also want to make sure I'm lifting up corrections officers who are also in this room, and I hear you and I see you, and many of them came from the same communities as the detainees. I don't want corrections officers to be in harm's way or put in danger. There's been already some arms broken and limbs harmed this year as well. And I want to make sure I keep putting that on the record. Corrections officers, primarily black females, being sexually assaulted, doors that are not locking, bathrooms that do not work. Those are things that we have to talk about as well. We see you and we hear you. We will not agree on this bill, but it does not mean that what you lift up is not worthy of us addressing, and we should and we must. With that, I'm hoping this finally ends the vestiges and the isolation that has been harming to people, what it's intended to do. I look forward to conversations about how we can implement this as successfully and efficiently as possible. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Public Advocate. Can I open the floor for any members who want to say anything? This is not your vote. If you want to explain your vote, you can explain that, but other members who aren't on the committee, if you'd like to say anything. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo my colleagues in lifting up the families and the advocates who for years, for decades, have been not just talking about banning solitary, but closing Rikers, about ending the investments to our carceral system. And I want you all especially to feel a degree of solace in that many of the members that you see here today and will hear from, as stated, are first-time council members, but have been lifelong activists and organizers. And our new chair, Sandy Nurse, This is a personal priority and certainly a committee priority, but rest assured that under this leadership, we are centering your experiences. We know your families. Families are irrevocably broken by this system, and we hear you. Many of you are our constituents, and we appreciate you. So this is, yes, a small step, but we will not be gaslit. We will not be told that solitary confinement is not happening when we know that it is. And no one who has survived solitary confinement has walked out and been a better person for it. And so we must work extremely hard after today to do a lot of reversal work. And I just want once again want to thank you and want to thank my colleagues who will vote in support to override this veto.
Thank you, Councilmember Gutierrez. I recognize Councilmember Narcisse.
As a nurse, I have seen how detrimental solitary confinement can be. I used to do reentry program, and the description that my clients used to give me, I could not even imagine that's what we do as human beings. Right now, I would tell you my own story. Putting one of the dog that I had, right? I put the dog in a cage. My son came back. My son said, "Why are you putting the dog in a cage?" Because, Mommy, what are you doing? You're teaching, you're training that dog not to see us as friend, as family. If you want it to be a best behavior, we have to do training the dog and give the dog love in the house. And that's what I did. So I cannot imagine a human being in a cage. But what I had seen, went to Rikers Island, seeing the faces, the eyes of those folks standing there staring at us. We are irresponsible, and as a nation, we have to do better. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, because there is places around the world right now, as we speak right now, training folks, talking to them, giving the training, the support system that they need. Pavlov dog, what you do, what you expected the person, the behavior to be, that's what it would be. But if you train that, if you talk to that person, you give them the training, the support system that they need to cope with whatever the problem. Mental illness is real. So I want you all to think about it. How would you like to be treated for somebody to put you in a cage? We will not receive that well. And the correctional officer, I have passion for them because I talk to them too. And when I ask them, how you feel like dealing with this, dealing with your brothers and sisters in a cage? They said that it's not acceptable, but we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to make sure that they respond better, but because we're not spending time to do it. If we spend the time, we will get folks on their feet, and when they come out, we don't have to suffer, especially in the Black and brown community where they're coming back. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Narcisse. Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you. I just want to really just acknowledge how big of a deal this is. I've been very vocal about my own family's personal struggles, and I have a little brother who's, I don't know how many of you have younger siblings, but he's like my son. I practically raised him, and he was, since very early on, diagnosed with mental health issues. And by the time that he was 11 years old, he was incarcerated because the local drug dealers would have him sell drugs for them because he was 11 years old and he couldn't get in trouble. And it started a cycle that lasted till literally a couple of weeks ago when he was released for the last time. And my brother spent a lot of his time in incarceration, in solitary confinement, or whatever it is that, we wish to call it. That mental illness became progressively worse as a result of that, because we're no longer treating individuals that are suffering. We're incarcerating them without the resources that they need to lead successful lives. And so when I look at my baby brother today, I don't recognize that individual anymore because there's nothing there. The humanity in him has been stripped away. And all he knows, and the place that he feels the most comfortable in, is in a cage. And that should speak really loudly to folks. Now, it doesn't negate the fact that we have a responsibility to keep our workforce wherever you may be safe. And we take that very seriously. But what we're saying is there have to be other ways to accomplish that goal that don't compromise the mental health of Black and brown men and women that are entering our jails unnecessarily because we lack the mental health treatments that they need. So with that, I want to thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank you, Jamani, for, I remember when I came into the council, I said, Jamani's a troublemaker. But he's still a troublemaker, but he's good trouble, and he's good people, and I trust him wholeheartedly because I know that he cares about these issues, and I know that he cares about both sides of the issue. Nothing is black and white. There's a lot of gray, and I know that he considers that. So thank you for being such an outstanding colleague.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Ayala, for sharing and for reminding us that this body, and reminding everyone that this body does know what we're doing, and we do know what we're talking about despite the remarks earlier today. I don't see any other folks who want to speak before the roll call, so first, shall we accept and file the mayor's veto message? And then second, shall intro 549A pass the objection of the mayor notwithstanding? Will the clerk please call the vote?
Good afternoon, William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote, Committee on Criminal Justice. The items are coupled. Chair Nurse.
I vote aye.
Ayala.
Aye.
Caban.
Permission to explain my vote? Thank you. It's really quite simple. We will never torture our way to safety. And I want to extend my gratitude, my undying gratitude, to the Halt Solitary Coalition, to Freedom Agenda, to all of the advocates, but again, first and foremost, as I had said earlier, to the families who have been so directly impacted and who have had to turn their pain into organized power to make sure that other families don't deal with this. And as a career public defender, as somebody who has joined my colleagues walking the halls of Rikers Island, I can tell you without question that solitary confinement does exist. I don't care what you call it, and people are being tortured, and we are going to take a step towards ending that today. And to sum up, I also just want to make this record. The entire council has considered and weighed all of the sometimes competing information from various stakeholders, including people who have lived through solitary, family members, other national experts, people working in the jails, the DOC commissioner, the federal monitor, and we have decided that the provisions of 549A are the proper way forward and are urgent and necessary to stop harm, reduce violence, and save lives. The entire council has fully considered all of the information and concerns shared by the monitor, and after considering the competing information, including that shared by other national experts on solitary and violence prevention, we believe that the current retried and renamed policies have led to endless cycles of abuse, violence, and death, while 549A provides an opportunity for a new approach utilizing scientifically proven methods for reducing violence and better protecting people's health. So I very proudly vote aye on all. Thank you.
Abreu.
Aye.
Hanif.
Permission to explain my vote? I'm proud to vote in favor of overriding the mayor's misguided veto of Intro 549. Thank you to Speaker Adams, Chair Nurse, Public Advocate Williams, and Councilmember Rivera for your clear and unwavering leadership on this human rights issue. Let me be very clear. Solitary confinement is torture. Depriving people of basic social interaction for extended periods of time as a form of punishment is a cruel practice that has no place in New York City. Solitary confinement erodes people's mental well-being and subsequently exacerbates violence in our jails. No amount of word games from this administration can change this reality. We can effectively address disruptive behavior in jails by implementing the de-escalatory interventions laid out in the bill language. Contrary to the misinformation campaign waged by conservative ideologues, the bill allows for short-term separation when needed for the safety of incarcerated people and DOC staff. It simply prohibits the dangerous type of prolonged isolation that has killed Brandon Rodriguez, Laylene Polanco, Khalif Browder, and far too many other New Yorkers. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the survivors of solitary confinement and the loved ones of those killed by solitary who have led this fight for years with the Halt Solitary campaign. The council would not be in this position without your work. I pray that we can deliver you some sliver of justice today. My Muslim faith teaches me that human life is precious and that torture has no place in our society. No amount of shameless fear-mongering from City Hall or violent personal threats from COBA members could scare me off from casting this vote. I vote aye on all. Thank you.
Marte.
Permission to explain my vote. As everyone has mentioned, not just today, but honestly for the years of fighting to end solitary confinement is not a time and place. It's not a week in the hole. It's not a month in the box. It's a state of mind. My brother was in the box on Rikers, on Kawasaki, and through 6 different juvenile complexes in New York State. When he got out his last time, he slept on my couch to get back on his feet. For years, I'll hear him wake up in the middle of the night, scream, a grown man cry in the middle of the night. Even till today, as my brother is considered a success story, someone that created a business, that are helping other people get off their feet. When I talk to his wife, she still hears the same noises that I heard almost a decade ago. This has to end. And I want to thank the public advocate. I want to thank our chair, Sandy Nurse, our former chair, Carlina Herrera, and all the advocates, so we can finally put an end to this. Thank you, and I vote aye.
Narcisse.
I vote aye.
Ressler.
Permission to explain my vote. The United Nations has determined solitary confinement to be torture. We all know this. We all know that more people have come out from Rikers Island and the experience of solitary and torture broken, have come out in worse shape than when they entered. The very moving stories about the siblings of Councilmember Marte and Deputy Speaker Ayala are stories that literally tens of thousands of New Yorkers could share with us today. These policies, the policy of solitary confinement is inhumane, it is despicable, and it must end. And I am very proud to vote aye and to override this veto. And I really want to shout out the public advocate for leading this fight with dignity and thoughtfulness, for bringing people together in charting a path forward, and the Halt Solitary Coalition for making this happen. Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens.
Permission to explain my vote. If the goal of jails are rehabilitation, we are clearly taking the right step, because the reality is solitary confinement is never about rehabilitating folks so that they can come out and be productive members of society. I want to echo something that the public advocate said. A lot of times we are put against each other. The people who show up at work every day to Rikers Island also deserve to be safe. But this bill is not about making them less safe. This bill is about thinking about how do we create space where everyone can exist. Hopefully, this bill will now allow us to have real conversation about rehabilitating the folks who need the help the most. And hopefully, we can work together to get to a space where everyone can be safe. Because if torturing someone is the only way you could feel safe, then we're not doing something right. So with that, I vote aye on all.
With a vote of 9 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, item 12, mayor's veto message is accepted by the committee. And in introduction, 549A is readopted by the committee. Madam Chair, that is a full committee.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. Let's go to the next stated. It's over.